you are the preparer of things, in like as an assistant manager and manager level. But, how does that translate to someone actually reviewing your work? Are you presenting your workings in an understandable manner? And I think that's also something that's really helped with the FMVA specifically.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Member Spotlight, where we feature the diverse and inspiring stories of finance professionals around the world. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Alexandra McLaren, a manager at EY Parthenon, specializing in M&A transaction diligence and business valuations. Alex's journey spans academia, entrepreneurship, support, and corporate finance, and today she's advising on complex transactions at EY Parthenon. She also holds a dual chartered accountant designation in South Africa as well as Namibia, along with CFI's FMVA, FPWM, and so many other educational all-time credentials. So she has a clear passion for education, which we love. Welcome, Alex, to the show.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be talking to you today. And the one question that I always lead off with to open up our conversation is, what got you interested in finance? Not necessarily a career in finance, but I'm always curious, what got you interested in finance? Did you have a family member that worked in the industry, or did you have something else that inspired you?
Yeah, so I suppose, I'm going to give you your typical answer that you'd expect, in that, it really was one of my parents that did influence me. But I think, maybe just to give a bit of context, so also, poor him.
Wow.
Yes. So no brothers. So, I think with my dad, he's always just wanted to make sure, that his goals are going to be okay. And I think especially a career in finance, you can almost pivot into pretty much anything, just having that background. My dad himself is actually a chartered accountant. My mom also holds an MBA in finance. So, I really was actually influenced by both of my parents.
And the thing I noticed that was really interesting about your educational background is we don't necessarily have, I don't think I've ever seen the dual degree combination between accounting and an LLB, a law degree.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about like this degree, why you chose to pursue it. And I think that this type of education probably gives you a really unique perspective on finance generally. So tell us a little bit about, what made you pursue that degree and how it's kind of shaped your.
Yes. Okay. So maybe just to give a bit of background, about the BIAC LLB degree. So successful graduates at the University of Stellenbosch, we obtain this degree in a minimum period of 5 years. So if you have to think about it, studying those degrees individually, the Bachelor of Accounting and the Bachelor of Laws, your Bachelor of Accounting degree is normally a 3-year degree, excluding your honors, and your Bachelor of Laws is 4 years. So, that could take you, depending on which degree you would have studied first, between 6 and 7 years. So we actually obtained both degrees at the same time in a period of 5 years. So again, I guess, going back to the first question with me being influenced by my parents, really. So my dad is a chartered accountant himself. So I guess, kind of naturally, I just leaned towards accounting. Again, also my mom, she was the former mayor of Windhoek in Namibia. So I guess, it also kind of gave me a bit of inspiration to go the law degree. And then, here I'm applying to Stellenbosch, and you can actually combine both. So, for me, it was kind of the natural choice. I think it really was the perfect degree for my type of personality. I enjoy both. I've got a wide variety of interests. But I think, ultimately I chose the BAC path. So upon obtaining my BAC LLB, I did my honors in accounting. I do have friends that are both qualified as chartered accountants and attorneys. So that's also very interesting. But ultimately, chose the accounting path. And I think it's quite a valuable degree to have, or degrees to have. It really helps in just your formation of an argument, the way that you think, your sound reasoning skills. So it's definitely helped, I think, just in any type of career path, just having that background, just being able to, read something, understand what it's telling you, and going from there.
Yeah, but I thought it was really interesting, the dual degree, because I feel like a degree in law really trains you on how to think very differently than you would have prior to doing that degree. And it's a really interesting perspective when you have a job that isn't necessarily, in the legal field, but has trained you to be very detail oriented in such a different way.
Definitely. So, I mean, I will say, having that law degree, it kind of does, I think, maybe just for me, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but for me personally, I kind of, think to question things. So, why is it like this? Trying to really gain that understanding of, okay, you've said this, but does it make sense? Am I understanding it? So, yeah, I mean, it really does give a good foundation of really trying to grasp something instead of just accepting, what someone's told you, I want to say.
Did you ever think about being an attorney, being a lawyer?
I did. And I think, in another life, I would have loved to have been a criminal prosecutor. I have an absolute passion for criminal law. And I mean, I did start my master's in law, specializing in criminal law. Unfortunately, I did find it a little bit challenging, having done my articles in accounting and then doing my LLM or master's in law at the same time, and then not being in the same field. That was slightly challenging for me. But I absolutely love the crime docs. I love watching criminal shows.
Oh my gosh, we share something in common. I love
I
true
love
crime.
it.
My best friend is a federal prosecutor, and so I've always we both love true crime. Well, her in a very different way becomes her full time job.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine. But I also think, everything happens for a reason at the same time. So, while I do have that interest and, it's interesting for me to watch those documentaries. And I think for me, I think my biggest passion is kind of trying to understand why someone does the
Yeah,
things they do. Yes. You know, I think it's still it's a valuable skill to have, a valuable degree to have, just in the way that you think and the way that you rationalize. So, yeah, definitely in another life, I would have loved to have become an attorney, but yeah, here we are.
not this one.
Not this one, no.
Yeah, I mean, for me, first, I think if you asked me when I was very young, what do you want to be when you're older? I would say, I think 9 times out of 10, I said lawyer, because I thought it was so interesting the way that people would like debate certain like
Yes.
opinions. And that before they were all fact. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting to be not necessarily like arguing with someone, but your full time job kind of being, uncovering the truth and having all these conversations around a specific topic to prove a point. And it was really interesting. But the 9 out of 10 times was lawyer, and that one time was, oh, I want to be on a trading floor because I saw it in movies and I thought it was so cool. And eventually, that's where I did go, but it wasn't quite like it was displayed on the movies.
Yeah,
But
I can imagine. I feel like everything is a little bit more glamorized on the TV shows. I mean, watch Suits. I don't think it's quite like that, in law. So,
your first job after you finished your degrees, or yeah, degrees, two of them, was as an academic trainee at Stellenbosch. Can you take us through what that experience was like, and is it something that people normally do after completing an accounting degree?
yes. Okay. So, maybe just to give a little bit of context, I assume that a lot of your listeners are US based. So in South Africa, there's different ways to become a chartered accountant. Generally, what we've always been taught is, okay, after honors, you go into articles, which is 3 years in audit, which I think everyone dreads a little bit. But then, you kind of learn that there are different paths as well. Generally in your first year, you can also do a year of academic articles, and then you've only got 2 years of auditing, or specifically in South Africa, I want to say it's not also just necessarily auditing as an articles journey. So yes, I learned about the academic articles in my honors year at Stellenbosch, and I was quite interested in that, just kind of, teaching students, especially when you're so passionate. I was very passionate about financial accounting, particularly. So it was actually my best subject in university. So, just kind of teaching students about that and just, instead of memorizing tables, trying to actually understand what you're doing. So yeah, I absolutely enjoyed that year. I think it was a great foundational year as well. And I mean, just also honing in on your actual, I want to say, academics or, yeah.
And then maybe you could take us through how you got your next role, because you then moved into outsourced CFO, where you worked closely with startups. But that's an incredibly different environment from academia. What were some of the biggest challenges and rewards of helping early stage businesses build financial rigor? It's not easy when they're that early stage.
It's definitely not easy at all. So, yeah, so like I mentioned, typically your journey into articles, into becoming a chartered accountant is going into auditing. But there are, as I mentioned, different paths, I want to say. So at Outsource CFO, my elective in my articles journey was financial management and not auditing. So that was quite interesting. I had a wide variety of exposure to valuations. And I mean, yeah, like I said, or like you said, working with startups. So I think one of the rewards with that, particularly, is working directly with the client. So you're actually meeting the CEO, the CFO, you're actually having conversations with them on, okay, these are your management accounts, what's been happening over the last month. Let's look at the forecasts. Have we looked at internal controls? So, it's almost like you feel like you actually have a direct impact into that individual's business. And I think that is definitely rewarding. Some of the challenges, as you mentioned, it's not easy starting know, um, helping a startup because there's a lot of challenges. I don't think being an entrepreneur specifically for me, just knowing what I've learned from my journey at Outsource CFO, but you know, I think you work with this amazing individual, and they've got this idea on they're going to change the world in this specific way. But a lot of the time, they don't necessarily have an accounting or a finance background. So for them, it's very new to learn about, okay, but we've got accounting procedures that need to be in place. So, let's reconcile your accounting records. Let's have management accounts. You need to be able to track your financial performance over the last few months. Let's draft your financial statements, all of these compliance things. So for them, that's very new. And then also having to explain that in a way that's very understandable. So that can also be a little bit challenging. But I will say, also with that again, and maybe this comes from being an academic trainee where you, kind of educate people. So, I mean, that was quite rewarding as well. Eventually, when an entrepreneur says, oh, yes, but why is this going up? How, or like where, how much have I spent on this? Like, this doesn't look right. Maybe this should be in a different account. So it's also when they start to pick up anomalies, I want to say, in their management accounts. And then you're like, yes, okay, this is what I've been trying to say. So, eventually they actually do learn a lot and they become quite involved in the finances themselves. And I think, that's also, I mean, it's challenging in the beginning, but it becomes quite rewarding in the end. And I mean, I think ultimately what you want with the entrepreneur is for them to expand and grow and, ultimately not need you to help them.
That's such a wonderful way to put it. And like, even I would think that a person that is, I would say, even if you have a business degree and not necessarily in accounting, when you're focused on starting the business, you probably do not necessarily have at the forefront of your mind, I need to get
Counting.
like accounting procedures and have processes that are the back end ready to go. And you are just focused on developing the business. And regardless of uh, how strong you are in accounting and finance, you don't necessarily have that experience to be able to say like, okay, like we need to put these types of structures and processes into place so that you can grow to the next stage of the business and be prepared to do so. But that's such a great part of someone's life, even just to be a part of, because you see so much growth.
100%. And I think, it's so rewarding to also see, um, especially when you've been in meetings with that entrepreneur and they've told you, these are their goals and, things that they want to achieve. And then you actually see it happening and you're like, oh my word, amazing. Like, I'm so glad that I got
They're
to
like
be a part of this
manifesting
journey.
it.
Yeah.
You're seeing them do it.
Literally. So it's Yeah, I mean, I can't describe it. It's incredible. It really is incredible.
So many of our listeners are early mid stage in their career, and I think that they would love to hear about how your hands on experience with small, fast moving clients at outsourced CFO has prepared you for the what I assume is a more highly structured world at EY Parthenon that you're currently in.
Yeah, so, I think having that hands-on experience with entrepreneurs specifically is, you really get to understand how a business works because, you're chatting to your client or the entrepreneur so often, at least once a month, if not more. So, you really understand, what's actually going on behind the scenes. You really, and because you're actually speaking directly to them, even as a trainee, it's also about learning skills on how to communicate what you need in an understandable way to your audience. So I think that's really, really helped in my role now at EY Parthenon is, not being afraid to actually join client meetings. Everyone's human. Um, so it's really just about having a conversation with the client. I know sometimes it can be really intimidating. You're speaking to the higher ups of the higher ups. And I mean, you're sitting there as maybe an assistant manager or a grad, and it's quite intimidating, but, everyone's human. So, I think just having that experience, understanding how the business works, as I said, really understanding, all of the effort that goes on behind the scenes. So I think that's really, really helped a lot. And I think also just my experience in learning how to, or how different accounting systems work. So, for example, I was exposed to a lot of zero. So I used to be, I say used to be because my certification has definitely expired now. So I can't claim to be anymore, but I was a certified zero advisor. So, I think on one of my most recent projects now with a deal, it was a buy side. I actually saw the accounts that the target drew, and I saw, oh, this comes from zero. Can't we ask for zero access? I know how to navigate this accounting system. So it really comes in handy, just kind of knowing how transactions are processed and where that falls into. Same thing with, I don't know if the US has ever used DraftWorks, but it's an accounting software where you can actually draft your financial statements or compile them. And I know that you can also use it for management accounts as well. So I also had a client, it was a valuation client at that stage, and they used DraftWorks. And I think they were presenting in one of the meetings, and I saw, oh, I've got experience in this, you can just send me all of these things. And I actually helped the team. I was like, this, or these codes mean this, and this is how you're going to navigate as to what type of account it is. So it really helps in, just also being able to understand the information that you've been presented with for your particular deals.
And I've spoken to a lot of people over the year for the podcast that are either in CEO type roles or have, founded businesses. And to see, I would say if it's your full-time job to guide people through the journey that is entrepreneurship, there's so much learned from just seeing how their journeys fold out. There's job creation which is an amazing part to see how someone's vision creates a whole new set of jobs for people. But it's also really disheartening to see when it's the other way around. I mean, the best part of that is being able to be a person that helps influence those outcomes and tries to take that business to where it wants to go. But I think it would be an incredible learning journey to see multiple people go through that process and see, their successes, their big wins, and then maybe some of the missteps that they make. I think there's a ton of learning there. But I would also think that, I love to see people be successful. I don't like watching people have a hard time. And so it wouldn't be a role that I would necessarily want to be in for a long time because I don't think I can handle seeing a lot of people that have their dreams and then decide, oh God, it's not working out. But it's probably a great experience to have. But when you decided that you wanted to have another role, what motivated you to move into transaction due diligence and business valuations?
So quite an interesting story, actually. So yes, I mean, I've spent most of my life in South Africa, and I actually moved back to Windhoek in Namibia last year. So interestingly, I actually thought I was being hired for internal auditing. And when I literally arrived on day one to EY, HR told me, yeah, so I got a whole induction. And, the HR was like, yes, we have started a new division for you specifically. You're now on strategy and transactions. And then I learned, because there's lots of subdivisions in strategy and transactions at EY. So there's transaction diligence, there's VME, which is valuations, modeling and economics. There's strategy and execution. The list goes on. So I learned that I was going to be part of the transaction diligence team in Cape Town. And we're actually quite a hybrid team. So we do, transaction diligence and valuations. So that's actually how I pivoted into this role, literally by chance.
Wow.
But it is literally my dream job. It really is my dream job. And, I really do think everything happens for a reason. Everything kind of works out the way it should. So
Okay, so
I
this is
landed
your
in my
dream job. Now
dream
you have
job.
to tell me more about it. What do you do day to day? What are the projects like? And like, what do you find most interesting about being an M&A and valuations?
Yeah, no, so really just by chance landed in my dream job. Um, Always thought it would be more on the law side that I would do this, but I think it's more drafting contracts, I want to say. Well, not that I have experience in that side, but I would just imagine that. But yeah, day to day, each project is very different. And it also depends, are you on a due diligence project or are you on a valuation? So I think what's quite interesting is, kind of seeing how the two kind of work together, because typically you'd start off with your due diligence report, whether it's a buy side or a sell side. And then typically, those inputs within your report will feed into the valuation. So it's very interesting being on both sides of that, actually. And every project's different, every industry is different. So you're constantly learning something new every day. And I think that's the beauty of the job, because if you're not learning something new, you're not in the right job, I don't think. So yeah.
I think a lot of our listeners would actually be really interested in this type of career. And so I'm going to try and break it down for them a little bit further. So can you walk us through the process of, how you'd get a client and what the kind of, journey is an overused word, but what the life cycle of that client is with you at EY Parthenon?
Perfect. Yes. So I think, typically, maybe let's start off with the due diligence. So that would normally be, whether it's specific shareholders within a company, maybe they want to exit the business. So they are looking to do a sell side due diligence. Or it's, one company looking to acquire another one. So that would be a buy side. So, typically we'd have clients approach us to say, can you um, do this for us? We need a buy side or a sell side due diligence done for us. These are the areas that we want to focus on. And I think it's also, again, about having that introductory meeting with the client, really trying to understand what their business is and what they do, because your scope of work is not necessarily going to be the same for every single client. So typically we'd have a look at, your company background, and then the transaction perimeter. So what I mean by transaction perimeter is sometimes you've got, let's say, a holding company and they've got all of these subsidiaries. And sometimes you need to actually do a due diligence on all of those companies. And sometimes that could be a consolidated view. Sometimes it's an individual view. Yes. So it can be a lot of work. So really trying to understand, what it is or what industry the business is actually in, because that will also inform kind of where your focus areas are, I want to say. But yeah, so typically you'd have, your background of the company, just giving an overview of, where it is that this company is currently operating in and what life cycle they're in, what's your transaction perimeter, so what companies are involved, and then really doing a deep dive into your income statement. So, what drives the revenue? What drives the cost of sales? What are your main operating expenses? Okay, so then we do, a deep dive into your income statement. So looking at what drives your revenue, your cost of sales. So how that influences your gross profit and your gross profit margin, looking at what are your operating expenses and kind of how does that fluctuate and what drives those factors. So ultimately, you want to have your EBITDA and you want to have a look at normalized EBITDA as well. So basically over your historic period, you want to see, what are those strange one-off transactions that don't really occur every single year, because you'd want to have a normalized view over your historic period. And then, also doing a deep dive into your balance sheet. So having a look at material items on your balance sheet, looking at your cash flow statement, also the quality of information that you get as well. Sometimes, it's very difficult. I mean, so sometimes you work with very difficult information to reconcile back to your financial statements, for example, that have been audited. So, just also having a look at what's the quality, how many systems does this business use actually, and does everything reconcile back to each other? I mean, reconciliations are a big part of transaction diligence. Um, and then, also having a look at evaluation. So that's also quite interesting. So it really is, again, looking at the drivers of the business, because that's going to inform your assumptions for your forecast period. Um, so yeah, it's quite interesting, and learning something new every day. I mean, looking at your beta that you're going to use in your cost of equity calculation. So yeah, I mean, literally learning something new every single day. So I hope that kind of answers your question on kind of
It does.
breaking
And
it
it's
down
like
and step by step.
just listening to you and like watching you explain, I can tell that you love what you do and you are so passionate about it, which is why you have this is a recent promotion to celebrate. You went from assistant manager to manager. So congratulations, Alex.
Thank you.
You're-
Thank you.
What would you say has been as you transition from assistant manager to manager, what do you think was your most meaningful moment of growth? And
So I think, something that's definitely helped me grow is, I think a lot of the time when we're starting off with our careers, you almost think that you need to do everything, right? And I think something that's been quite a big learning, it's not a learning curve per se, but just something that I've learned along the way is, there really is no I in team. I mean, you're not going to cross that finish line with your project if it's not for the team that you're working in. So, just learning, to accept different perspectives, learning to, and also just learning, that you might not know everything. You're learning from other very experienced individuals within your team. Um, so that's definitely been something that's, helped me grow a lot. I think, just taking every single day as a new challenge and really being open to, learning how things work, because I think transaction diligence and valuations, it's very new to everyone starting off. So especially we've got a lot of team members coming in from audit. So it's a very different way of thinking about things, and the way that you analyze information, and also, also kind of having to accept that, there might not be a source for all of your assumptions that you're going to use. Sometimes it really is just judgment. And it's, how do you get to that judgment? So it really comes with experience. And the only way that you're going to learn that is really, being open to learning from the higher ups above you.
And I could tell that you are a huge advocate of education and that you genuinely love learning, which doesn't surprise me because I find that everyone that finds CFI, it it's not something that, for example, is in your traditional line of I go to a good school, I complete an undergraduate bachelor's or master's degree, and then I go work. After that, whether you have a certification like a CA that you need to maintain or you need to pass the bar, there things like CFI, for example, our programs are completely optional. They are out there for people who are curious about careers in finance or want to, further their professional education on their own time for those people to find. And so it doesn't surprise me that you found CFI. But I'm curious, you did not just one, you did the FMVA, which is very challenging. You also did the FPWMP. So, kind of two very different perspectives. The FMVA, which I think is quite in your wheelhouse because it is, financial modeling and valuations, very, very much in line with what you do for work. FPWMP, more complementary, it's more wealth management focused. But so you have those two designations from us. You also have your CA that you have to maintain. What motivated you to pursue additional education? I feel like you have everyone has limited time in their day, but I feel like you're so busy.
Yeah, no. So, I think firstly, CPD is a thing, so continuous professional development. But I also think, being curious about how you can do things better, what other perspectives are out there. So that's what I absolutely loved about both courses is, just learning how to communicate, learning how to present financial information in a more understandable way. I think also something that you learn along the way is, you are the preparer of things, in like as an assistant manager and manager level. But how does that translate to someone actually reviewing your work? Are you presenting your workings in an understandable manner? And I think that's also something that's really helped with the FMVA specifically. It's just being able to present your work in an understandable and a readable manner. So it's actually easy for someone to follow what you've done and to actually understand what you've done and where things come from. So I think it's definitely about being curious, I want to say, most importantly. But I think, again, just willing to, or just being willing to, learn something new, see how you can improve and be more efficient in what you do every day. So I think that's definitely a motivating factor, especially, because as you mentioned, we all have such limited time in the day. So, you want to be as fast as possible.
My next question was going to be my curiosity was how did you find that the CFI FMVA, maybe a specific course, supported and helped your development in areas like valuations, financial modeling, or client communication? But you've already answered that. I find that people find the FMVA is most helpful for them in like one kind of very specific way. Some people come in with the idea that I need to really practice my financial modeling. That's what I want to get better at. And they walk away with that. But I love hearing that you found that it helped you with the idea of like, how do I present my analysis?
Yes, no, it was really, really helpful in that. And I also want to mention, specifically all of the Excel shortcuts also helped a lot. I've been in an environment where, especially at varsity, you obviously study Excel, so it's called information systems. So, you do learn a lot of Excel, but, in one of my previous roles, we used a lot of Google Sheets. And then coming back into Excel from Google Sheets is slightly different. So, it was really, really helpful for me specifically just to kind of have a refresher on all of those Excel shortcuts and just a faster way again on just how to do things.
So Duncan, Jeff, and Tim are going to be absolutely thrilled to hear that. Every time someone says like, "Oh, I discovered like all the Excel shortcuts and it has made my productivity just go through the roof," Duncan is just, oh, he's so happy.
No, it really does help. And I mean, I'll definitely say, it's all about practice because it's one thing knowing about the shortcut. But I think actually, I mean, it is going to be slower in the beginning because it's slightly new to you. You're always used to doing things a certain way. But I mean, after you actually become familiar with what you're doing, it's so fast. It really does make a difference. It really does.
I want to do a little bit of reflection here. Looking back, what would you say is the moment that you're most proud of in your career so far and something that has really affirmed for you, yes, I'm exactly where I should be because I know that this is your dream job, which is basically, yes, I am where I should be.
It's such a tough question. So I think, definitely, I feel like every year has been a highlight in its own way. I mean, there's definitely been challenges over the years. I mean, we all experienced COVID, and that was particularly challenging, I think, for
Oh,
everyone.
yeah, that was new to say the least.
um, yeah, definitely, yeah, very hard time, I'd say, for everyone. But I'm proud of the way, or I'm proud of my journey, I want to say. So I want to say, yes, it might have taken me slightly longer instead of, having pursued the BAC degree straight instead of BAC LLB, which is slightly longer. Having that law background, it helps a lot. I mean, just being able to understand tax and read tax legislation, for example, has helped immensely. Um, so I think, I want to say every year's been a highlight. I don't really look back on a year to say, oh no, that didn't work out, or oh, this could have gone slightly better. Or I really do believe in, everything happens for a reason. But I think, yeah, the time when I had my, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, I think I had it twice. So definitely in my third year of BAC LLB, I think that's when I finally realized, how do I study? And, the way I study, how does that translate to passing or not? So that was definitely, one of my aha moments. And I realized this is the degree for me. But then I think, again, yeah, starting off at EY Parthenon last year and, really having or gaining that understanding of, yeah, just what goes into a due diligence report. I had exposure to valuations, and I guess, every company's got a different way of doing valuations. But again, having a deeper understanding of that, and I thought, this is where I'm meant to be. It wasn't, I always imagined myself doing this in law, I think I mentioned, but it wasn't supposed to be in law. Yeah.
And if you could, I don't know if you're going to have a piece of advice to give your younger self, because I feel like you're so level headed and positive. But if you were to give a piece of advice to your younger self when you were just starting out outside, just graduating the BIAC and the LLB, what would it have been?
So I think maybe a piece of advice that I would have given myself, and maybe this is something I wish I kind of did way back when, is, not being afraid to take risks. I mean, if something interests you, I'd really say, I mean, even if it's like, so for example, I really do have a wide variety of interests, and I almost studied chemistry instead of BIAC LLB. So, doing or just learning about something that interests you. I mean, taking this, a few minutes of your day, just like learning about, tech or chemistry, like I say, just anything really. So, that I think that's the piece of advice I would have wanted to give myself. Yeah, I'd say maybe looking back now, I kind of wish I want to say, I've lost my maths, but obviously we work with maths every single day in finance. But, kind of having like your deeper understanding of maths, like for example, calculus. I've forgotten how to do calculus. I can't remember. But,
Oh my God, so
just
have
kind
I.
of, yeah, it's been a few years now. But I mean, maybe just keeping up, up with that, because I used to love calculus and trigonometry. But I mean, now it would take me a week probably to refresh on that at least. And that's probably the bare basics. So yeah, I mean, I think just keeping up with things that interest you and not being so focused on, oh my gosh, I have to do this and I have to do that. And then this is the path. I mean, we all have our own journey, I think, at the end of the day. And again, everything works out the way it should.
And now I'm going to ask you a couple of fun questions. I always call it a rapid fire question round, just so that people get to know you a little bit better. Um, okay, so what is a song that will instantly put you in a good mood?
Okay. I'm so terrible at this because, I do know song names, but it's not necessarily like a particular song. I
Oh,
think, it's
favorite
just,
band, favorite artist, musician?
no, it's just definitely a tough question. I would say, anything with a beat. I really want to say anything with a beat, something that you can dance along to, because I really think, the way you start your day is the way that sets the tone for your day and the way it's going to end. So, I mean, sometimes I actually used to do like dance. I used to be a ballerina a few years ago, a long
Goodness. Oh,
time.
fun fact. I love that.
Yes. So, I mean, not like a prima ballerina or anything, but I used to do ballet. But I mean, I used to actually start off the morning with dance classes, and I actually saw the difference. I was in a very good mood throughout the day, just starting your day off, dancing. And yeah, it really makes a difference. Actually, I should do that again.
And today,
Yeah.
what would you say is what is your go-to? Let's say after a long hard week, what is your go-to comfort meal? What's your favorite type of food?
My favorite type of food. Okay, so generally I prefer desserts as an actual meal as opposed to the meal.
Oh, I love that.
I would rather have the dessert, I mean,
What's your
but I
favorite
think,
dessert?
excuse me, my absolute favorite dessert is peppermint crisp. I don't know if you've ever had that before. A peppermint crisp tart. Yeah, it's delicious. I'll send you the recipe. It's amazing.
Oh,
So you've
if,
got
if
your.
it's simple, I'll make it.
It is quite simple. It really is. So, you've got your crackers at the bottom, it's cream and caramel, like kind of whipped together. And then you've got, do you have peppermint crisp chocolate? Have you had that
Yes.
before? Yes. So then you put that on top as well. It's delicious.
Ooh, oh my gosh. My favorite is a tiramisu. I love tiramisu.
That's also so good. I mean, I feel like with any dessert you could win, right? But I mean, if
Sadly,
I
it
had to
is
pick a,
dessert, right?
If I had to pick
And
a meal, it would probably be like spaghetti bolognese. I die for that.
I'm a huge Italian food nut. My favorite place to travel is Italy. My favorite food to eat is Italian. So, but also I love carbs. And so it ends up being all
For the win.
pasta.
Carbs for the win, literally.
And if you could pick one skill that you could instantly master overnight that's not work related, what would it be?
I feel like you've got very tough questions here to answer. Oh, wow. Okay. One skill that's not work related. Tough to think about that. One skill.
It's a
I
hard
really,
question. I think I should make my rapid fire ones more like easy, like tea or coffee. Master the skill. I remember someone asked me this and I was like, oh, it's just such a weird question. It's so hard. But eventually I settled on I would like to learn any language. Like if I could master that overnight, like I could somehow have a knack for languages and pick up Chinese, French, Portuguese, like all of these things with minimal effort, that would be amazing. And I would instantly increase my employability.
I feel like maybe a question for you then, just going on that. What languages can you speak?
I can speak in naturally English, low hanging fruit, Korean, and a little bit of Chinese. And then I could understand minimal Japanese and Spanish. But all of those, like really apart from English and Korean, everything else is like the stage that I'm in those languages are so bad because I never practice them.
I get you. I mean, I used to be able to understand German very, very well, but not having been around it for a few years, like it's very basic for me now. But I guess, a skill that I'd really love to learn with minimal effort, I would say coding. I just see that being, I know we said no work, but I just do see that becoming very relevant in our roles today. And maybe not knowing how to code, because I mean, we've got Copilot and ChatGPT to write us a code, but I think being able to understand the code would be quite
That's the
helpful.
most important thing, right? Because you're basically saying that we have all of these technologies that help us understand it, but you're only as smart as the operator, right? So if you really know
Yes,
it, then yeah.
exactly. And I
Okay.
also think, just kind of knowing where to change certain inputs, so I think understanding the code is quite important. But yeah, I think that's
Okay.
something
So
I've
that,
really,
but that is also an extension of understanding languages.
it
Just
is, it
not,
is.
yeah, right? So we agree. We would love to be able to pick up languages, whether they are, like spoken languages or coded languages, computer languages.
100%, 100%.
Alex, thank you so much for joining me here today. I absolutely loved hearing about your insights about your career journey, and I think that all of our listeners that are tuning in today have taken away a lot. And especially if they're interested in careers that are kind of related to what they study in FMVA, I think you've given them such great insights. And I can't wait for this to be published and for everyone to listen. So thank you so much for joining me here today, and thank you everyone for
Right.
listening.
Thank you so, so much for having me. Yeah, it's almost 7:30 at night this side of the world, but yeah, thank you so, so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. Enjoyed the conversation a lot.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. FinPod is brought to you by Corporate Finance Institute, the #1 rated online provider of finance and banking training, certifications, and productivity tools.